Bicycle paths in all of the Netherlands. Now, this map only shows designated bicycle paths that physically separate the cyclists from the other traffic on the road. So it's actually very possible that there's a lot more than just this. This is insane. Like, you could very easily bike across the entire country, get to almost any point. It looks like it'd be difficult to get to this area, which borders Belgium though. But there are a lot of other bridges right here that can take you across a lot of the streams or rivers. Interestingly, that map isn't necessarily saying the capital of Amsterdam is best for bikes. I mean, it's definitely not bad, but look at it compared to this, like all of this area. Maybe it's just because there's a lot of bigger cities packed in more closer together, whereas like Amsterdam's kind of by itself right here. Speaking of countries that probably should bike a bit more, the obesity rate of different countries' population. And unsurprisingly, we in the US are #1. USA. And it's actually been slowly increasing since 1975. There were certain decades where there was a bigger jump than others. It looked like things kind of slowed down between 2000 and 2010, but then like as of recently, it just popped up again. We also have Mexico, who's gradually been increasing as well. Australia, who started off at less than 10% in 1980, is now in 3rd place on this chart, and the UK is right behind them. Israel and France might be the only 2 places that have actually kind of gone down, and then we've just had really slight increases from China, Japan, and India. So like, what are we supposed to do? Like, I don't even know. Most common foreign nationalities in prisons in European countries. To start things off, the most common person that isn't British in prison is likely Albanian, which is unsurprising when you look at Greece since they border Albania, but like, what's going on in the UK? Also, it's Polish in Ireland. Again, when you border the country, it makes sense. We have Ukrainians in Poland and Slovakians in Czechia. I mean, they're just trying to bring back the Czechoslovakian Empire. Can you really blame them? We have Romanians in Austria. They just kind of like skipped over Hungary, I guess. Then Algeria for France and Switzerland, and then Morocco for Italy, Spain, and the lowlands. Interesting that it's Estonians in Finland. I guess that's one way to get into Nordic, and I guess same goes for Lithuanians in Norway. Why are there so many Lithuanians in Norway? Then there's Somalians in Denmark. I actually didn't recognize the flag in Portugal. I guess that's Cape Verde. I have to admit, I really did not expect these islands off the coast of Africa to be the #1 in Portugal. How's that even possible? Oh, is this why the Austrians didn't want the Romanians in the Schengen zone? Yes, I finally figured out how to pronounce that correctly.
Schengen.
I don't even know where I got the other pronunciation from. The number of Indian students in every country. So according to this, there's a total of 11 million Indian students outside of India. So here we have the entirety of India. Meanwhile, there is only 7 in Sri Lanka. How is it 7, and who are these 7? I want answers. It's like an island, right? Like, it's not a tropical paradise? I mean, that's probably not the best place to go if you want to learn and stuff. Not surprised that there's only 230 in Pakistan. It's actually way more in Bangladesh. There's 23,000 in China. You know, out of the 11 million, I figured there'd be a little bit more. I mean, there's more in China than there are in South Korea, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia combined. Quite a bit in the Philippines. Only 8 in Indonesia? Like, there's no way that's accurate. Indonesia is such a huge country. How is it only 8? Okay, about 100,000 in Australia. I can see that. 30,000 in New Zealand. I would like to study in New Zealand. There's actually 16,000 in Russia. Meanwhile, as we approach towards the west, there's 80,000 in Saudi Arabia, 200,000 in the UAE, yet only 48 in Turkey. 48? How is this real? Obviously, the continent of Europe is going to have quite a bit. Ukraine, Germany, France, the UK has the most. They kind of have that old colonial relationship maybe still going. Not a whole lot in Africa. I mean, 10 in Sudan, apparently. We don't even have numbers for like Mozambique and Kenya, Tanzania. I don't know what's more shocking. These great countries have 0 students from India. Like 0? There's not even 1? If I was an Indian student right now, I'd want to be the one guy in Chad. Although, I don't know. Heard Chad is pretty hard to like live in. There's over 200,000 in the USA and Canada, but actually Canada has a bit more. Indian students like Canada more than the US? What? Only 150 in Mexico. 4 decided to actually come to Brazil. I don't know why this is so fascinating to me. I would love to see other countries included on a list like this. Like China too. That would be interesting to see the international students from China. India obviously has like a historical connection to like the old former British Commonwealth, which I think explains like Australia, New Zealand, the UK, USA, Canada. Although they did decide to kind of skip over South Africa there then. Also British Malaysia, not too many there. But it comes down to like English speaking countries. I'm sure that's part of it too. And then of course like just overall proximity. It's probably a little bit easier to go to school in like Perth, Australia than go like all the way across on this side of the globe. Although a lot of them decided to still do that, you know. I feel like the single most shocking thing is that there's 10,000 in Kyrgyzstan? What is Kyrgyzstan doing? When you're British but can't afford a trip to the US, keep things simple and start a little journey from Washington to then go to Cleveland and Richmond, then Leeds, and of course Anchorage, Alaska. California. You can visit the entire state of California by visiting a city. I'm always very confused by Birmingham. I've always been told I mispronounce that, but there's no way. I mean, it can't be that much of a difference.
How do you say it? Birmingham.
Wow, okay, there is a pretty big difference. Guess I shouldn't be surprised that the Alabama accent kind of changes a lot of this. And go to Lincoln, Nebraska, Boston, Massachusetts, Rochester, and finally ending off in Plymouth. You know, to be quite honest, knowing how unoriginal we were here in the US when it comes to names, I actually thought we would see way more. I mean, I guess we did slap the word new in front of a lot of these old city names. But I felt like a lot of Americans from the 13 colonies were pretty much just like copying and pasting these names from back home to over there. Wait, I think I might be onto something. This is all the places in Massachusetts corresponding to their locations in the UK. Okay, yeah, maybe this is a bit closer. Maybe they're not exact. They could, like I said, they might have like a little different word in front of it. I don't know, different letter, or maybe it is the exact. This is more what I expected, and this is just out of Massachusetts. There should be way more. Locations are approximate, some variation in spelling, such as, okay, yeah, maybe small changes, but for the most part the same. That's crazy. That's what I figured. Isn't it weird when you're like traveling and you meet someone that has never been to your home country? Like, it shouldn't be that shocking, but it kind of always is. I met a lot of people in London that had just never been to the US. Like, that shouldn't, it's like, okay, that should be normal. But I was also like a little surprised. I guess before that moment, I had never been to London, so I'm equally as bad. I'm part of the problem. From the Fort Erie Fire Department, stay off the ice on Lake Erie. Of course, Lake Erie is one of the 5 major Great Lakes. It's also the lake that is shared with the most states. We have Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and even New York with a little bit of border of it. Or maybe it's actually tied with Lake Michigan. It's the same. Wait, where exactly are people going out on the ice though? What state is responsible for this? And why do we already know probably? So hidden holes in the ice shelf are hard to see and extremely dangerous. So this is a hidden hole because like there's no support underneath it, so you drop right into the water and then yeah, you're done. Man, that would totally be me. I would have no idea something like this would even exist. What's going on with the water? Why is it like that though? Like, why is the water doing weird things? I'm sorry, I just Californian here. I don't know anything about the cold or what happens when water goes below freezing. Say anything about that. I don't know. So you fall in and it's over. I don't think, I mean, unless you swim, can you swim here for a couple, like 24 hours? There's probably no one else that's going to be dumb enough to come out on the shelf ice like you, unless, I don't know, maybe there will be. And that dude's just going to fall into the perfect name for it. Okay, I'm going to assume these ice shelves aren't this large, right? Okay, yeah, they're not that bad. But yeah, if you fall in and you just hit water, I can see you're in trouble. This is something I so would have done when I was younger too. Ice shelves along Great Lakes pose threats from hidden volcanoes. What? And it literally looks like it is a volcano. Is that hot water or is it just freezing? The 19 types of berries which are native to America. So we have the dewberry and the regions. So the wolfberry, I guess whoa, what is this? Snowberry, but that thing dips into some pretty hot territory. I was just talking about how the wolfberry clearly likes the heat or humidity because it's even in the deep south. A more popular one, the blueberry, which is mainly on the east coast. The blackberry, we have more of that on the west. There's the, oh, that's just in Canada. Strawberries, which are pretty much everywhere. They can, I mean, I guess that explains why some are going to be more popular. I mean, the ones that like are obviously everywhere are very popular. Cranberries, that's in a small location, but I mean, that's like my favorite berry. It's one of my favorite berries. The mulberry, some of these I'm actually like saddened that I haven't heard of before. The elderberry, that always just sounds like an item from Dungeons and Dragons. So berry diversity really increases along the East Coast. Hard to grow like berries out here. Yeah, it's just hard in general. Surprised that Canada, it's so cold, yet I mean, they have great berry diversity. It's berry diverse.
Baba Bowie.
Apparently North America doesn't even have the country with the most berries. It's Finland. There's 50 different types of berry plants in which over half have edible berries. So berries like the cold, apparently. I really need to try more berries. I need to venture out into the berry world. And here's a map of some berries that were left off. Raspberries, which those are Mr. Worldwide, I guess, as well. A lot in Europe, interestingly enough. Here are the movies with the biggest gap between the original versus the sequel. And this is defined by having the same lead actor. That's key. So we have Tron to start things off. The first one came out in 1982. The second one came out in 2010. That's 28 years. Then we have The Odd Couple, which I have to admit I've never even heard of before. It took 30 years, 1968 to 1998. I was somewhat conscious in 1998. I think I should have known about this. Coming to America with Eddie Murphy, that took 33 years. I thought that was going to be a bigger hit when it came back, but I guess not. We have Blade Runner, which is everywhere in the meme sphere right now. This took 35 years. I don't know if Harrison Ford was technically the lead in that, but you know, he was in it. I'm still surprised at how relevant this movie still is to this day. I mean, that movie came out in 2017, like 6 years ago. Yet the internet in general seems to be still obsessed with it. And then the longest of all, we have Top Gun. That came out in 1986, and obviously the sequel came out recently. That was 36 years. And who would have guessed it was gonna take the USA by storm? So the top two here ended up becoming pretty big hits. I feel like not so much the other ones. So time doesn't necessarily guarantee it's gonna be a cult classic or anything classic. Metal bands per 1 million people compared to average happiness score. That's right, you might be surprised to find out the more metal bands you have, the happier your country on average tends to be. Finland has the most metal bands apparently in the world, and yet they are also the most happiest, along with all of the Nordic countries. Of course, the Nordics love their metal. We have Sweden, Norway, Iceland. Denmark is very happy, yet they don't have as many metal bands. Germany, Netherlands, Austria. See, there's like this holy land of metal, and it's still very popular to this day. Like, it's mostly in the heart of Europe or in Northern Europe. Although I will say Greece has quite a bit. I didn't even know that. But yes, Finland definitely still has the most. Greece might be kind of the one outlier. They've got a lot of metal bands, but they're not super happy. See, this explains everything, Albania. You really need to get into some like death metal. Start forcing the youth to play, you know, guitar, listening to Metallica. And actually, that's for all these countries. I'm surprised that Russia doesn't have a little bit more metal, to be honest. But then again, if they did, they'd be happier. Maybe they don't want to be happy. I don't even need any more evidence. This has got to be absolutely true. The most expensive buildings ever constructed. So we're going to see a lot from China and the US. Surprisingly, Australia makes the list quite a bit. Europe isn't a big like skyscraper fan, although I think we're talking about more than just skyscrapers. Finland starts the list off with a mall here. This is in 30th place and it costs about 1.4 billion. Okay, so we're actually just talking about a wide variety of things because we have an airport in Singapore, Wembley Stadium in the UK, of course a bank in Frankfurt, Germany, I'm not surprised. We have the Burj Khalifa, which is actually the tallest building on earth. That's only in 26th place though. I guess it doesn't cost that much to make the tallest building on earth. We have this like pear thing in St. Petersburg, Russia. It more looks like a, I don't know, this is better, way better. It doesn't look like a pear at all. So here's when Australia starts making the list. We have the Parliamentary House and then the Crown Sydney. Both very similar in terms of like budget-wise. Well, what's very interesting is this number shows us how much it costs to construct, and this is showing us how much its value is now. Oh, well, this government building in Australia was made in 1998, and there's probably a lot of significant value behind it. What is this in Mumbai, India at 21? I think it looks crazy. Okay, yeah, this thing is crazy. Why have I never seen this before? Looks like a bunch of books like randomly stacked on top of each other. We have this Taipei building in Taiwan. The Bellagio, surprisingly, that was made in 1998. That is like probably the most famous area in Vegas. These two towers in Malaysia, they're Australian building. Yankee Stadium, this was actually made in 2009. It's worth $3 billion today. Oh, the Venetian. I thought for a second we went back to Vegas. This is actually in Macau. Macau is said to be the Vegas of Asia too. Oh, wow. I guess Bellagio is not #1 in Vegas. I don't know why we keep talking about Vegas. So leading in the top 10, we have the One World Trade Center at 9. Cost $3.8 billion, but right now it's almost worth 5. Another building in Macau. I really want to go to Macau. The Cosmopolitan. All right, there's a theme here. I didn't know Nevada was doing all that. Oh, Apple Park. I've heard of this, but I haven't seen it that much. It was made in 2017. It's worth $6 billion. We also have SoFi Stadium. Yep, in Inglewood. They just completed that one. 5th. That's the 5th most expensive constructed building. Resorts World in Singapore. Another building in Singapore. This one in Mecca. It was built for $15 billion, and now it's worth almost 20. Oh yeah, that's like that huge. I have seen this before. And then finally, the Great Mosque of Mecca. So Saudi Arabia didn't pop up at all on this list, and then they just grabbed the 1 and 2 spots. This thing is worth $115 billion. I'm noticing that like certain buildings will have a bigger impact. They're just like the construction of the building. There's obviously more meaning behind it. It's gonna have more value. Really surprised that Europe was only really mentioned a few times on this list. And all the most expensive buildings in the US, or at least a majority of them, are actually in the West Coast. I thought like there would be a couple more in New York. China has a ton. Some of these are going to Macau though, and Australia doing surprisingly well. Hey, where's New Zealand? That was very informative. The state of global peace, countries and territories by peace level as of 2022. So this nice color right here means that they are most peaceful. Of course, Canada having that, not surprising. Red represents least peaceful, and orange is second to that. So we are just like second from like most warful. Is that no, least peaceful? I see. It's us in Mexico. Let's go. Actually, a lot of the Western Hemisphere seems to be struggling in this category. Costa Rica, Panama, and Chile seem to be doing okay. Uruguay too. Pretty much all of Europe is chill. Like, I mean, some are a little bit better than others, but this is is amazing from this continent, considering just their history. Peaceful wasn't really a word that you'd use to describe them for the last like couple thousand years. Of course, Russia, Ukraine, little red. Can't believe Belarus is yellow. Wait, how's the US above Belarus? I guess they haven't directly got involved or anything. New Zealand, Australia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, South Korea, Japan, all doing some pretty good numbers. Meanwhile, Mongolia too, I think they kind of already got it all out of their system. I think it's safe to say once you get this big, you're kind of cool with like not fighting anymore. Just hope they don't relapse. Then we have to sprinkle in a lot of red and orange, but there's a lot of yellow as well. So interestingly, this list shows the most improved countries. It's actually Jordan at number 1. Was Greece really a problem beforehand? 14. Then Angola, Bolivia, and Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, the countries that have deteriorated the most, the ones that have become even less peaceful, we have Eswatini, Kazakhstan, surprisingly, Guinea, Kyrgyzstan, and then, okay, that one is not shocking. What happened with all these other places, though? I didn't even hear about that. Like how almost every single country is included on this list except for Greenland. They are so peaceful that they're like wrapping around and becoming unpeaceful again. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. It's rare when you see a map with data from Western Sahara just below Morocco as well as North Korea, but we're not sure exactly how peaceful Greenland's being. That's a little scary. And big thank you to my patrons: Drew's Goth Girlfriend, Triv44, aka Drew Come to Krakow, Polandnextvacation, Twickenhamster, Drew's Argentinian Grandpa, $20 is a lot, Drew, Selene, B Wildfang, Bryton Is, Carmel Saida, DJ, McSkillet, Ortin, Patrick, Allison, Robert E, the Polish Lithuanian, the Mexican 760, Veiotic, and ZaneyBoi.